Finance. We're always delighted to have this widely followed returning guest. Andy Schectman, the CEO of Miles Franklin Precious Metals, keeps showing up in more and more places these days as he's eagerly awaited all over the independent journalism space on the internet, helping to get the word out about why it's important for people to be taking actions to protect themselves at a time when we are not going to be hearing that from the mainstream sources that are doing everything they can to divert our attention into areas that are not necessarily for our best good. Andy, thanks for this really live stream. Today is Wednesday, April 23rd, 2025. Thanks for coming back on Liberty and Finance.
Pleasure's mine. We haven't done this for a while. I'm sorry. Seems to be
Well,
time management is my biggest challenge in life, and I appreciate you pivoting with me more often than not, but it's good to be back with you. Thanks for having me.
I mean, traveling internationally can do a number on anybody's schedule. And as you've broadened your presence on the internet and in independent media and in print media, and I understand if you want to hold up that magazine we were just talking about a
Yeah,
moment ago.
this one kind of took me by surprise.
So I understand that's in the lobby of every Delta Sky Miles club
The
across the
Delta Sky Lounges, which
Sky
I
Lounges. There you
yeah,
go.
they called me and I at first thing I said to them was, how much is it going to cost? And they're like, nothing. I'm like, really? We just want to interview. Okay, great. So I did it. They sent me like 20 copies of it. And then I started getting phone calls from friends of mine um, saying, see if I can show you a picture. I started getting phone calls from friends saying, I'm traveling and I see you in the Delta Sky Club. And here I get a call from one of my daughter's friends who's on an airplane and he's laughing that there I am on the airplane with him. So yeah, it was neat. And I notice our mutual friend Gregory Manarino is on this month. So it's never thought I'd be on the cover of a magazine, to be honest with you.
We keep can't get our picture on the cover of the Rolling Stone, but you are on the cover of the
The
Traveler Sky.
executive global, I guess. Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway,
It's
I was just
surreal.
saying that's one of the reasons you're harder to get these days is because so many people want to talk to you, which is understandable.
Well, I
We're glad.
appreciate that, Dunnigan, and but you're more enjoyable to speak with, so it's good to be back.
Well, the reason I'm here is because of all the good people that are on the chat. So every one of you who is on the live chat right now, we have 279, no, 371. It's going to keep jumping. Usually we get up to over 1,000 and a half, or 2,000 during our chats here. And, by the end of the first 2 hours, there's been, sometimes 10,000 or more views.
That's crazy.
That's the reason that we're here is because we've got to get the word out. It's interesting that my son, Elijah, who many of you know, started this before me. It's all his fault. Got me into it. It's all his fault. And he said, as a homeschooler, asking me, Dad, where does money come from? When I couldn't give him the proper in-depth answers to satisfy him, as few adults can to most of his questions. And he dug deeper and deeper. When he came back shaking his head, he said, Dad, if what I'm learning is true, I have to start a YouTube channel. I have to get this word out because people need to know. People need to
How
know.
old is Elijah right now?
He's about to turn 30.
Yeah, I remember when he called me and he was a junior in high school, and I'm like, "Who is this kid?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm a homeschooler, and I'd like to interview you." I'm like, oh, "Okay." I don't know how he found me or what, but it's been a long path with your family, and I couldn't think more highly of you or all your sons, and but it's funny to think that I met him long before I met you.
That's true. Yeah, he was interviewed on the Financial Survival Network with Carrie Lutz at age 16, who branded that episode, Teenager is Smarter Than Ben Bernanke. But anyway, the point being, the reason we are here is because we have to get the word out. It's just too important. It's too important. So for everybody who's listening, everybody who's in the live chat, everybody who's going to be watching this after we're done, it's too important for the financial futures and the well-being of your family, friends, neighbors, coworkers to get to hear what Andy has to say and what our other guests have to say. It's where I've been learning it. It's where we've all been learning at their knees. And hearing what we're not hearing on the mainstream news. So, Andy, today one of the things we're going to talk about with you is some of your latest research into what's going on with the BRICS plus coalition of countries. We've got a lot of other things we need to talk about as well. Trump putting out a rather cryptic tweet about gold. We're going to get to that. And we're going to talk about the gold silver ratio again. What's going on with that? We're going to talk about gold breaking 3,500 a couple days, day and a half ago.
I'll follow your lead, whichever way you'd want to go. I'm excited
Well,
to do it.
let's start with the BRICS Plus news and phenomenon that are happening there because there's a lot of the world that's represented by that, and you can only, as I believe it was Abraham Lincoln saying, you could fool some of the people all the time and all the people some of the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time. The world population is largely not being fooled anymore. They know the emperor has new clothes on, have no clothes on, and they're changing, they're pivoting, they're changing their behavior, they're changing their plans, they're making action steps right now. While most Americans, unfortunately, are still whistling past the graveyard financially because that's all they're being told. So, what do we need to know that we haven't been told in the past week
Well,
about BRICS?
think about when we started talking about the BRICS. It was before that we talked about the Belt Road Initiative. And the Belt Road Initiative is 75% of human population, 50% of global GDP, but most of the countries are not in the BRICS. They're aligned with the BRICS. Think of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and the Eurasian Economic Union. Massive amount of human population, most countries not in the BRICS, but associated with the BRICS. The president of Belarus for a year has been calling for a summit to bring those two entities, the Eurasian Economic Union, those are the countries that then in stand, like Kazakhstan, and the SCO, which is the largest regional military and financial group in the world, into the BRICS. Never happened. So you have this huge swath of human population that's all tied in with China and in many ways tied in with the BRICS. So think about that as we talk about this. Um, we talked about on your show many times how the BIS at the 12th hour, Augustus Carstens, when he came to the United States for the IMF meeting, said, he got his arm twisted, saying after 4 years of the BIS Innovation Hub developing the Bridge with China, Hong Kong, Thailand, and UAE, it was operational. They said, look, we can't be involved in a platform that allows countries to evade Western sanctions. And I always joke, after 4 years, he realized that Russia was the R in BRICS. All of that stuff. Um, Keep all of this in mind as we move forward with this here. So a few days ago, the People's Bank of China. I'm just going to read this part verbatim. What I'm going to read you is the Bridge. They've changed the name to the bridge or to something else, but this is Bridge technology, which allows countries to trade their own central bank currencies cross-border. They're all ISO 2022 compliant. So each one of these countries has their own unique CBDC, but they all communicate with one another in the bridge, and then they would settle in gold. Forget about the fact that the unit settlement token has kind of been pushed to the sidelines. From what I had an interview with Matt Riley the other day, and he said, no, it's there, it's coming back. They're just being very quiet after what the BIS did. But in the meantime, they've been trading local currencies and settling in gold, any imbalances. And, remember, it was the head of the New Development Bank and the former president of Brazil, Dilma Rousseff, who said, we've agreed in principle to this new settlement token traded over Enbridge. And then the BIS, what amounts to espionage, pulls the plug. Keep all of this in mind, and the Belt Road and the Eurasian Economic Union and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization as I read this. And it goes as follows. The People's Bank of China, and this is just last week, has announced that the digital RMB cross-border settlement system, that's the Bridge, is now fully connected to 10 ASEAN countries. Those are the countries in Southeast Asia. And 6 Middle Eastern nations. This development enables approximately 38% of global trade to bypass the SWIFT system, which is predominantly used for transactions in US dollars, allowing these trades to be settled directly in digital RMB. In practical terms, China's digital currency bridge has significantly reduced cross-border payment processing times from the typical 3 to 5 days associated with SWIFT to approximately 7 seconds. For instance, a pilot transaction between Hong Kong and Abu Dhabi demonstrated that a company could pay a Middle Eastern supplier using digital RMB, eliminating the need for multiple intermediary banks and achieving a real-time settlement with a 98% reduction in handling fees. Okay, great. So they've rolled that out to 40% of global GDP. But Sergey Lavrov just put the icing on top of this cake. Sergey Lavrov is talking about the new BRICS meeting that is coming into focus here on July 7th and 8th in Rio de Janeiro, with 44 countries expressing interest and 23 formally applying. Vietnam is the 44th country to express interest in joining. Okay. 23 have formally applied, 44 have expressed interest. The meeting's July 7th. We haven't heard a lot because what the BIS did, I think, made them all rein in the amount of information that they want to pass around because they realize that the West is maybe not as keen on this idea as they all are. So let me read this to you. Brazil, as the 2025 summit chair, has proposed a new BRICS payment platform. That is this bridge technology. And here's where it gets interesting. For both member and non-member countries, think the Belt Road, think the Eurasian Economic Union, think the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which amounts to north of 85% of human population, the majority of global GDP, all of the resources, majority are produced in these countries, the rare earths, the precious metals, the majority of the soft commodities like wheat, all of it, the majority are produced in these countries. The system would be independent of SWIFT, the US dollar, the euro, and the British pound. So the US, the euro, and the pound, they're on the outs. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov emphasized it will be open to non-member nations, accelerating de-dollarization on a global scale. So to me, when you realize that they are now opening it up to countries that are not just BRICS members, this changes everything. It changes the complete and total narrative. Now, all of these countries will be able to trade outside of SWIFT. So any information we are getting regarding how the dollar's dominance on the SWIFT system is so strong ignores the ability or the reality. This stuff won't be counted in SWIFT. These countries will be able to trade with one another using their own ISO 2022 compliant cross-border payment currencies to trade and then settle any discrepancies in gold before the unit settlement token takes place. This is a massive, massive deal. And when you see the commercial or the central banks continue to buy gold at a level the world has never seen, and reshore it, onshore it, it should be a wake-up call to the West. When you see Trump say we're gonna throw these tariffs on you, which aren't tariffs, they're sanctions. It's only reinforcing why these countries are joining, including Vietnam, who's been friendly with the United States, but now is the 44th country to apply and express interest. So this is not something that has gone away, regardless of the fact that I haven't talked about it on your show for a while. I've been very quiet about it. There hasn't been a lot of information, and that I believe is done purposefully. But you can see that they are continuing to build this infrastructure, and now opening it up to non-BRICS members is insanely significant. And if you were to say, if China said all transactions on the Belt Road will settle through this new system, not going through the SWIFT. Think of what that does to the dollar demand, to the settlement status of the dollar, and ultimately to the reserve status. Think of what it does. The Eurasian or the Shanghai Cooperation in and of itself is a huge swath of human population. You put all of these countries together, along with all of their resources. This is something that should certainly not be underestimated. And I think it's easier for a lot of the pundits out there to blow off what the BRICS are trying to do when it's just the 9 countries. You talk about adding potentially hundreds of countries. There's over 150 countries on the Belt Road. You're talking a whole different ball of wax. I don't care how small they are. The common denominator in all of these other countries, whether it be in the Eurasian Economic Union, whether it be in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization or in the Belt Road, they are all significantly located in strategic areas, both either on land or bordering water, or more relevant, strategic to all of the natural resources they have. So this is a trend that is accelerating, and they don't need the BIS to do it anymore. They're doing it themselves. So stay tuned. I think you will see more and more and more information rear its head on the significance of the BRICS expansion.
Another aspect of that that we've touched on, you have several times in the past, but you didn't, I don't think, just this time, but it's very relevant as you talk about the critical mass of numbers forming, is this dimension, and that's of strengthened numbers against retribution. Because in the past, whether it was Libya, whether you can go down the list of countries who, when somebody came out and said they were going to go away from the dollar or go with gold, there was a regime change. There was a smackdown. There was uh, some mallet got bumped up, pound a bump on someone's head, and the rest of the world went ooh. And at the Ron Paul Peace and Prosperity Conference in Washington, D.C., they talked about how uh, the government, well, I guess the shadow government, the deep state in the U.S. has followed this regime building or regime ending practice, this MO, which they said is just like thuggery. It's what they say. It's like the mafia. They say the government is just like a mafia, but they have the flag. So if you have an individual who sticks their head up above the crowd, they can get a lump pounded on their head. But when it's 75% of the world's population, as you're talking about this critical mass forming, it's becoming there are strength in numbers. Then who are you gonna go after? Who's the U.S. gonna go pound a bump on if this happens as you're describing?
And
Because
two of the
it's
three
this
or three
huge
of the
crowd of
four largest
countries.
nuclear arsenals on the planet. And you can't take these countries lightly. These countries are not pushovers. They're not Libya. They're not Iraq. These are some of the biggest, most industrialized and strongest military countries in the world.
We have a couple questions here that may be relevant. I wanted to get to real
Sure.
quick. Okay, about tariffs. Neuron Web says, Andy, any more news on import tariffs on gold and silver? There's been a lot of confusion about tariffs in general. That's been chaos. But specifically about bullion, can you tell us what we know at this point?
Well, I was surprised to hear this because it was my understanding that gold would not be tariffed. And I asked my operations, why do we have no gold bars? Virtually none. I mean, we had some, but not a lot. And he was saying that the tariffs for the Swiss bars are too high. Now, I don't know if he's mistaken or not, but that's what he told me, that the bars are being tariffed. Maybe it's because they're not sovereign coins. I don't know. And maybe he's wrong, but as far as I was led to believe that gold was not going to be tariffed, but maybe it's investable gold or 1 ounce gold bars or whatever it is. I will just simply tell you that maybe it's a result of the tariffs. They're becoming very, very hard to get. It's much easier for me to get sovereign minted coins right now than it is 1 ounce gold bars, which were always the easiest thing in the world to get. But no, other than that, there hasn't been a lot of talk on it. But look, there's something called Triffin's dilemma, which is something that the White House has written about. There was a great piece done by Mike Maloney, and he talks about this. He says the White House acknowledged the fact that Triffin's dilemma basically says if you're the world reserve currency, there is no choice but to run trade deficits. You cannot do enough commerce to make up for the fact that the world needs dollars and more and more and more dollars, and you can't buy enough from these countries to give them enough dollars. And so we have to export dollars. We will always have a trade imbalance. And you have to wonder, does Trump understand this? Does he not understand this? Or does he understand it and he's trying to incentivize this? Could it be a continuation of the too stupid to be stupid that we saw in the previous administration, just on a different hat? In other words, why not extend an olive branch to these countries instead of going more with the stick and threatening with tariffs that are actually sanctions and huge tariffs. These countries, I think, these are the countries, as I've said on your show before, that take our currency for our paper. They take our paper for their goods, rather, and they're the ones who then recycle back into treasuries, which keep interest rates low, which keep the goods that we buy cheap, which keeps our asset prices high, and has enabled us to live like kings. Do we really want to go down that road where no longer are they buying our treasuries or wanting to hold our dollars and moving away from it, which would make asset prices fall, which would make goods much more expensive, and would make our standard of living much lower ultimately? Would that be the onset of a reset? Maybe. I don't know. But someone should explain to him Triffin's dilemma. If not, and look, I voted for Trump and I'd vote for him again, and I'm glad he's here. And I'm not. rallying against him. But what I am saying is that you have to wonder what his motivation is, and you would think he would understand something as basic as that.
Like still at the national and international level, William PMCD says, please, any comment on the hazard of mines becoming nationalized? You certainly rub shoulders, Andy, with a lot of mining company CEOs at the conferences that you attend. Any later thoughts, more recently, on whether there's going to be any expected change in the risk of nationalization?
You would hope it wouldn't happen in North America. I mean, it would just be wise to keep that in mind as you are buying mining shares and choose jurisdictions where it's less likely to see that happen. No, there hasn't been much of it, but it wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. I mean, if you are Mexico and you have silver mines, yeah, why not nationalize it? It's probably the most valuable asset you have in the ground. Although I haven't heard much about it, it's always been something that has been spoken of. So, I mean, the only way to defray or minimize that risk would be to buy mining shares in, Canada and the United States, or in regions that have far less chance of not only geopolitical problems, but governments that will realize that we're far better off keeping these assets for ourselves than selling them to people in the United States, et cetera. So, but I will say, as far as mining shares are concerned, I'm quite bullish on them right now, and I think it's a good time to be selling mining shares if you're a company like Sprott that does so, because they're catching a bid. Their all-in sustaining cost is as low as it's ever been, with oil as low as it is and gold as high as it is. They're printing cash for the first time in a very long time. Yet the funds haven't caught on yet. I would say that everyone should own some mining shares right now. I would start with the majors and the what are they called? The royalty stocks first.
Royalty and streaming companies,
Yep.
yeah.
And then maybe, if you have that in your portfolio, dabble with some of the juniors in exploration, which are far more speculative. But this is the time to do it. This is the time. If you were ever going to do it, this is the time where gold has led the way. Mining shares haven't done anything, and with their costs as low as they've been, gold up here, oil down here, this is the time to do it. So yeah, I think that people should consider some quality mining shares right now. Just be careful on the jurisdiction that you choose.
There's questions here. We put that question in the beginning about the gold silver ratio. There's several of those that are coming up. Chill asks, with a gold silver ratio up around 100, do you expect silver to close the gap upwards or gold to close the gap back down?
I would think silver would close the gap upward. Something is big with gold, Dunnigan, and I mean, I almost hate saying it, but something is going. I've been saying something's happening with gold. Um, you know, the U.S. has become a net importer, and massive deliveries, and everyone talking about revaluation, and Trump coming out. You mentioned at the onset, his quote was, "The golden rule of negotiating excess: he who has the gold makes the rules." Thank you. Well, where the heck did that come from? That was on Easter Sunday. He who has the gold makes the rules. This is the golden rule of negotiating success, he says. Well, we're an importer of gold. Scott Bessent, who recently came out and said that we need a new monetary system, a new Bretton Woods, and that will happen probably within the next 4 years, he said, during this administration. He's a self-proclaimed gold bug. It was his largest holding when he was running the hedge fund. Um, Something's going on with gold. And Judy Shelton, Trump told me he's gonna issue. She said that on my show. I don't know if she said it on yours, but he's gonna issue treasuries backed by gold July 4th, 2026. He told me that. She said, something's going on with gold. I believe it is quietly being reintegrated, or really reintegrated into the monetary system. No one knows about it yet. Drop a gold coin on the table with some of your friends who don't follow your work done again, and see if they can talk to you for 60 seconds about it. They can't. The public isn't aware of it yet. It's the big money, the central banks, the commercial banks, the family offices, the sovereign wealth funds. Okay, they get it. No one else does. Nobody does. And to me, gold is going to go a whole hell of a lot higher, if I had to guess. I really do believe that, higher than people think. And silver is a coiled spring. It's been held down for so long. Who knows what the real price is? But we've always talked about historically silver lags behind gold. That's true. And when it catches up, it's 2 to 5 times the performance in terms of percentage gain. But the gold silver ratio is your timing signal. You go back through history, anytime it gets to 80 to 1, it's time to go heavy into silver anytime. And it's only touched 100 to 1 3 or 4 times in the last 200 years. I mean, literally. And every single time it's got anywhere near then, it shoots right back down, which I would expect silver to greatly outperform percentage wise, according to historical norms, according to geological ratios, according to, I look at China and I talk about this all the time. I've said it on your show 1,000 times. They're the second largest producer in the world. Why are they flying around the world going to Peru and buying doré and concentrate and all around Latin America right from the miners? This disintermediates the acquisition. No one knows how much they're buying. It doesn't affect the price. And if they are the second largest producer, why the hell, if it's not doing anything, why would they fly around and buy concentrate and doré, pay double what the West will, send it back and refine it? Why is Russia buying it for their stockpile? Why has India bought 7, 8, 900 million ounces over the last 5 years? Why? Because they understand what's going on. They're playing the long game. They get it. If it weren't for the naked short positions that have been destroying the prices of gold and silver for all these years, silver would be massively higher if it weren't for the military industrial complex needing silver to make bombs to blow up countries. And then that same military industrial complex, aka BlackRock, who is the primary custodian along with JP Morgan of SLV and GLD, they own the majority of the military contractors. So they blow up the countries with the bombs that they make with cheap silver, and then they get the reconstruction contracts. It's a sweet deal for them. That's why silver has been cheap. That game is coming to an end. The delivery mechanism is what is destroying their ability to manipulate. And if Basel III is as significant as we think it will be coming this July, it is the ability to naked short and lease gold that has enabled them to continue this game of gold and silver suppression. Maybe that's coming to an end. I am very confident that silver will have its moment, and it will be to the upside, not to gold's downside, because I think gold will go a whole hell of a lot higher, much higher. In fact, I did an interview with Matt Riley, and we were figuring it out, and he was saying $6,000 was his number by next July. And listen to the video, and you can see why. And James Rickards is 24,000, and who knows how high it gets, but if I had to guess, gold will outperform people's expectations and silver will outperform gold on a percentage basis before the music stops.
You mentioned a moment ago that the traditional pattern that's followed by these, and Rick Rule says this as well, in the last four major bull markets in metals is gold moves first and silver moves later, faster and farther. Susan Silva says, should I just sell all my silver to buy gold, or
Not yet.
will silver also be included in the reset?
Silver will not be included in the reset in terms of a tier one asset, but I think there is a realization by the world, the central banks in particular, the governments, that silver is no longer just industrial; it's strategic. So it won't really be part of the reset as gold will be. But remember, there is over a 90% correlation in movement for 5,000 years between the two. So it will be, but not directly. I think it will come along with gold's rise. It won't be per se part of the reset, but it will be part of the reset. It just won't be officially part of the reset, but I believe it will follow and probably be the most impressive performing asset of our generation. I have a hard time believing anything but. And if it weren't for the military industrial complex and their diabolical desire to fund war around the world and then hopefully get the construction contracts to rebuild what they blew up, silver would be a whole hell of a lot higher if it was traded freely. And maybe this is the beginning of some form of free trading when the rest of the world is saying, okay, continue to short it on your stupid exchanges. We'll just stand for delivery. And you see the pushback of the Bank of England and the LBMA. Well, we don't have enough trucks to deliver it. So you're looking at an 8-week delivery instead of 3 days. So, it's breaking. You're watching it break. I think we're watching gold be reintegrated. Silver is still trying to find its place and to find its breakout point, but gold is quietly, and the volatility that you see up, down 200, up 200, down 200, up 200, that volatility that we are seeing is keeping the mainstream at bay. But yet it continues to march higher. You'll see it march higher. I mean, here we are again in the aftermarket. It's up $41 right now. It was down 80 today. It was up 110 the other day. I mean, it's insane. And I remember an article that my buddy he is my friend, but I'm blanking. What the heck is his? What the hell is his name? Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I'm having a senior moment.
It'll come to you. Just
He used
what
to
was the
write
gist?
for Casey Research. Jeff Clark. Jeff Clark. I remember an article Jeff wrote, and he showed historical. The greater the volatility you see, typically portrays a breakout, and so to either way, up or down. So I'm not convinced that the downside risk is really that prevalent right now in gold. Something bigger is happening, but the volatility is enough to keep most people from entering into the space. Yet it continues to move higher ultimately. So um, yeah, I just think that the best is in store for those of us who have strong enough fingertips to hold on through all of this volatility, through all of this counterintuitive price action, through all of the madness that makes us gray. Those of us that have held and understood what's happening, but it didn't quite materialize the way we had hoped. It will, just not when we think or how we think, but it will.
This next question brings together about three major themes that we've talked about at various times. You've talked about the poor performance of the U.S. Mint at keeping up with demand, investment demand, even though that's part of their charter. They're required to do that, and they don't. We've also had talked with Bill Holter here several times about the importance, in his view, and of his former partners, Jim Sinclair, of having U.S. Mint lineage coinage. And we've also talked now just pretty extensively here about a potential reset of gold, as you mentioned, Besant, and Trump leaving some breadcrumbs of hints about that. Bill M. from Florida asked, do you think at some point during a reset to gold-backed something, the U.S. could shut down the mints and no more eagles?
Yeah, sure. Why not? I mean, we hope not, but yeah, I suppose they could. I mean, it would be tough in that they'd have to rewrite laws and stuff like that, but they could just minimize the instead of doing that, they could just severely constrict the amount that they make. You look at Platinum Eagles as an example, they only made roughly 30-ish thousand last year, the last several years per year. They haven't made any yet this year, to my knowledge. They haven't made much in the way of Silver Eagles since Trump took office. So instead of just stopping it, I think they would just make it, as rare as hen's teeth. Only those that act quickly will get it. If you've ever tried to, if you go to usmint.gov, you can buy proof coins, and you can't buy the type that we typically recommend, the commercial strike, but very often they'll have some new issue like the Morgan dollars or the peace dollars that, the commemorative new coins that represent those from, the turn of the century, or they made a high relief St. Gaudens that was commemorating the old high relief St. Gaudens, or some of these rare sets that come out. If you're not on their website within 10 seconds of it coming out, you don't get them. It's like buying concert tickets for the Rolling Stones kind of thing. It's like if you don't do it quick, they're sold out. I think that could be the same thing with the primary distributors. They'll just gobble everything up and sell them at high premiums, and that's it. Sorry, we don't have enough availability. There's too much global demand. So instead of just closing the mint, I think they would just greatly constrict what's available, and wouldn't have to deal with the global backlash of doing something of that nature.
We have a question here about that's right in your wheelhouse. What are the current inventory levels? You've talked to us in the past about, you mentioned earlier in this interview how remarkable it is that you hear crickets from the mainstream media about all-time record gold prices day after day after day after day. But what about you said oftentimes just when you think that the public would be getting hand over fist interested, they haven't even got a clue. And that affects the inventory levels. What are we seeing currently?
I don't think the inventory levels are that great right now. They were, and I screamed it for over a year. Um, all the stuff that was so affordable, that being the back dates. So, you go back to last year, you had the rise of the Mag 7, you had performance of Bitcoin, and you had the Trump trade where everything seemed like it was, this risk on trade, and people were selling gold and silver and buying, Nvidia. People were growing tired of the counterintuitive nature, and then Trump gets elected and everything's going to be great. And um, so there was a big overhang in product because last year was a great year, but way off the year before. And then Trump comes along, and now everyone is on the sidelines. So there's this massive overhang of product, and as I mentioned on your show before, then at the beginning of the year, dealers have to spend literally tens of millions of dollars. If you own Miles Franklin, you have to go and buy Maple Leafs, Philharmonics, Krugerrands, Kangaroos, Britannias, and Eagles, gold, silver, platinum if they're available, various sizes. If you don't and you don't have that, well, you become irrelevant. So not only with the public, but also with the refineries and the mints and the distributors. And so you're putting out $50 million or more, whatever the number is, to buy all of that stuff, but you're choking on inventory as it is. And you can sell gold eagles for the same price that you're buying brand new gold eagles from the mint or the primary distributor. It's a very troubling situation. So for all of last year, most of it anyway, and the first several months of this year, product was, you know, that was certainly not an issue, and premiums were next to nothing. We are beginning to see that change. All of the backdate silver coins that we had for sale, tens and tens and tens of thousands, are all but gone. And so you're buying 2025 stuff. The backdate gold eagles are now 28 days out on my website or on my back end portal, meaning we're hopefully get them in the next 3 to 4 weeks. You're buying 2025s. The point of it is that and I've said this so many times, it can switch on the drop of a hat.
Mhm.
I mean, again, I talked with Rick the other day, and 1/2 of 1% allocation. He keeps saying it. So if that just goes to 2.5%, it's a fivefold increase. And just like that, everything changes. So we've seen an increase in demand, I think, from sophisticated money. The order sizes are far bigger than we're accustomed to seeing, far bigger. The smaller orders, well, they're not there still, but the big orders can very quickly drain everything you have. And I truly do believe that it's starting to shift. The premiums on things like junk silver are still ridiculously cheap. It is the best value, period, in silver, but a lot of the sovereign mint coins are becoming hard to get again on the backside, the back date, the non 2025s. Those were where the real value was. So inventory is still decent, nowhere near what it was. And all it takes is one reason for people to realize that this is real. And in a matter of a day or two, in North America wide, you're having a hard time getting your order filled with any expediency. I'm not trying to dramatize it or over dramatize it, but it is becoming tighter, noticeably to me, in what was a overwhelmingly flush and low premium environment. I mean, premiums are lower than I'd ever seen for a good
Mhm.
portion of last year and the beginning of this year during the first quarter. That's all of a sudden changed.
Two parallel questions here. One, Anonymous asked thoughts on the $200 smackdown in gold following hitting $3,510 basis futures. Related question by Mixed Nuts Nation, looking encouraging that 3,300 might be the support based on tonight's action.
Yeah, I mean, when I was in Europe, it fell by 200 and down to like 29 or whatever it was, and shot right back up and came down, shot right back up. And yeah, we did see pretty dang close to a 200. I mean, it touched it in the middle of the night, 3,500. We're at, like 33, 30 plus right now, up over $40. And um, that volatility is there for a reason. Volatility keeps people sitting on their hands, not making the decisions. This is a game that is being played at the highest levels of the LBMA and COMEX. This is a game that is being played with sovereign nations and central banks and commercial banks that are trying to, I think, prepare for what's coming. And um, there are a lot of these institutions, a lot of these hedge funds that are on the wrong side of the trade and maybe are doing whatever they can to get out of it and to reposition. So I wouldn't pay any attention to this volatility. Take a step back, look at the big picture. And I don't mean to underestimate it. A $200 drop is a lot, but $40 move up today is just over 1%. $100 drop yesterday is 3%. Is that really that big? No, it's not. It's 3%. Yeah, you don't want to see that day in and day out, but it seems like we're going 2 steps forward, 1 to 1.5 steps back, and it keeps going higher, base building. And that volatility, the only time people who who choose to look at gold a certain way, the only time they notice it is, oh yeah, it fell by $200. But it's psychological, as far as I'm concerned, and it keeps John Q. Public from crossing the Rubicon from traditional assets into things like gold and silver. And I think the people that are controlling the price and ultimately controlling the destiny of where this goes understands that. They want to reposition, but the futures market allows them to paint a narrative that keeps most people, misdirected into other asset classes, and that plays right into the hands of the big money that is quietly repositioning, as I truly do believe we are seeing a reintegration into the monetary system. I truly believe that it won't be easy, but it will outperform everyone's expectations. When you see it fall like that, don't lose sleep. You'll see it come right back. I would venture to say, who knows what it opens up at tomorrow, but up $41 after falling nearly 100 today or 80 today. So it fell by 80, it's up 40. So half of the fall today has come back in the aftermarket. No one's paying attention. Everyone's looking elsewhere now, eating dinner and not paying attention. Your people are, and I am, and you are, but don't let it get you down. This is something you have to understand as someone who sees the bigger picture. Don't let the bull throw you. That's what they're trying to do. The bull wants to take as few people along for the ride as possible. Doesn't bother me at all. It's annoying, but it shouldn't bother you. It's just part of the game.
Yeah, your comment about people not understanding, and this Alistair, we just interviewed him today, it'll be on later this week, talked about people have to understand that instead of saying that the gold is going up, they need to realize it's evidence. The gold is just telling you the truth. The dollar is going down, as are all other fiat currencies. It's at all-time highs against many currencies around the world. And if you think about it in that terms, if you're standing on a lifeboat and you see the ship going down, you don't think, "Oh, wow, look, it's down far. I should jump back on now." It's like, "No, that's going down." That's what all of the fiat currencies are doing. It's like a ring of skydivers when they're doing their performance, and they're all holding hands where they're falling at different rates, but they're all falling and they're falling rapidly. And we're seeing gold holding its value in face of that destruction of value. So anyway, just in our own retirement community, hearing people talk about, gee, I recommend someone who had been in a financial position of responsibility most of his life, saying he was recommending to a friend to sell his gold. I said, "Why would you do that? Why would you tell someone to sell their gold right now?" He said, "Well, because it's at its high. It's high, so you should sell." And I think that it reflects a lack of understanding of the greater perspective that you're saying about what's happening. What are you going to sell into, and what are you going to hold up to? How are you going to hold your value then? Um,
Absolutely, no question about it. And that's really it. Where are you going to go? You move from one asset class to another. Gold is nowhere near overvalued. It has no retail participation. No is not the right word, but minimal. Um, and what asset class in this environment of low interest rates that we've seen for 25, 30 years and easy money hasn't been distorted to the upside. So it's certainly not time. I'm sorry, every time I do a podcast, the dog barks. There's so many things that I would like to tell the public, some of which most of which but I haven't released the things that I want to tell the public that's coming soon. But one thing I will tell you is that we're in the process of designing and ultimately building a studio, so I won't be doing this from home anymore and listening to my dog make these noises. It will be a really cool professional image studio that we're building down here in Florida. So when you come down here, I know we're a couple hours away. You and I will have to do together in the studio some form of a live stream, maybe during the Rules Symposium.
yeah,
It
we'll
should
be
be
there. We'll be there the
well
first.
built by then,
That's
and
right.
that's here in my backyard. So anyways, I'm sorry. Every time I start a podcast, the little one screams. She doesn't bark, she screams. It's really weird.
Speaking of the gold silver ratio, which we were dealing with for a few questions there, Stephen Montplaisir. Sorry,
Easy
Stephen.
for you to say.
No, not. Andy, do you think the gold silver ratio will ever be 30 to 1 again?
Yeah, I do. Very much so. It was 37 to 1 or so in 2011. Ironically, I was fortunate enough to tell people to sell their gold to me and buy silver in 2010. the first podcast I did, YouTube with Big Swear, and it was 85 to 1. The second or third time in human history had been that high. And 7 months later, it was 37 to 1, just below its 200-year average. It's been stuck up in this higher range for the last several years, but for hundreds of years, it was 16 to 1,000s of years. And then, for the majority of the last 150 years, it's averaged closer to 42 to 45 to 1 than it has up in the 70s and 80s. And seeing it at this level right now, just, this is rarefied air. Typically, anytime it gets near here, it slingshots down. So yes, I do. When it's coming out of the ground, it's 7 to 1. Um, that has to tell you that at some point these numbers are just flat out uneconomical. It's mathematics, it doesn't work. So yes, I do, but the old adage, the market can be and stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent, has been prevalent for a while. One of these days we'll wake up and see silver no longer being suppressed by the Western paper game because there's just not enough physical to back these contracts. And then the physical market takes over on a real price setting mechanism, which I think will ultimately migrate eastward to Dubai or Shanghai or to the BRICS exchange, which they are building right now. You will see price setting at a whole different level by the countries who have spent years playing the long game and accumulating, who understand commodities and things like precious metals, and will then you'll see the price really reflective of that. And I think the world is tired of the charade that the West has allowed to happen with asset prices because it's controlled where they can make oil negative $40 a barrel. Really? How the heck does that happen? Well, that's because it's controlled by the futures price. It's the tail wagging the dog, and the futures price has turned into a speculative endeavor. I'm so sorry. It's in
No, no, your microphone must be really good and directional because we hear you, we don't hear the dog. You're
Oh,
good.
well, that's crazy. The dog's loud as heck. Anyways, it's turned into a speculative arena rather than one where it's about hedging risk and exposure to those who hold the real commodities. So it'll change. And yes, I do think it will, and probably lower than that. If you said it was single digit, it wouldn't surprise me. Ultimately, it wouldn't. It's coming out of the ground at 7 to 1. Put the ratio at 9 or 10 to 1, and that's logic. And ultimately, maybe lower. So yes, I do.
Here's an intriguing thought experiment. Bob says, do you believe Trump will ever deliver the gold to the people before revaluation, a reverse Roosevelt maneuver?
No, I don't. But I did see an interesting podcast with Mike Maloney yesterday, and he was talking about when the dollar was backed by gold, it was only backing M1. M1 is the currency in circulation. M2 is largely credit. It's roughly 92% credit. That would be the money in your savings account. It's on it's a digital number, and it's a promise of the bank to pay you in digital, I mean, in Federal Reserve notes, but until it crosses over, it's credit. And the way that what he said was, well, his prediction was $10,000 an ounce gold by the end of the year. Or I'm like, wow, that's crazy. And the way he came up with it, and he laughed. He said this would be my high end prediction. He said you take M1, which is just the currency, right? Two trillion 365 billion in Federal Reserve notes in circulation. And you divide that by the 261 million ounces we supposedly have, which haven't been audited, ironically, and that's $9,044 today. And he said, well, the Fed would want a little bit of wiggle room, so they'll make it $10,000 an ounce. If that were to happen, it wouldn't be that crazy. But what he would then be saying is that the currency is then redeemable by gold. And I don't know that that will happen because De Gaulle from France proved that redeemable or convertible currencies convert. Maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't. I don't know. I think Judy Shelton's premise is probably more likely where they back the treasury with it. But Mike's, I would say people should listen to Mike's podcast. I found it to be really, really interesting. Divide the two trillion 365 billion by 261 million ounces, and you get $9,044 an ounce. So anyone who walks into the bank with $9,044, or by Mike's estimate, 10,000, would then receive an ounce of gold. Would it happen? Don't know. The banks aren't prepared to do that. Don't know what the mechanism would be, but I think they're going to reintroduce gold into the system, and whatever the mechanism is at that point is anyone's guess.
Two questions here on platinum, which do come up every time. Not these two questions, but there are always questions on platinum every time we talk. Darren says gold is produced over 15 times more than platinum. Got to wonder about the platinum price. Chilla says, any commentary on platinum's all-time high platinum to gold ratio? Should we consider selling a bit of gold to pick up platinum for a long play?
No, that's the same logic behind the gold to silver. It makes sense. I just don't know that. I mean, I'm bullish on platinum, but it would be third in line behind silver and gold to me. And maybe not in that order, but it would be third. I think you should own some, but um, I'm not as convinced. I mean, it doesn't have the historical precedent of being wealth. It's more of an industrial metal, and but there's a real, that ratio, that mathematical aspect of it is certainly saying platinum's way undervalued. So yeah, I mean, if you have a lot of gold and you wanted to trade a little bit for platinum, it wouldn't be the silliest thing you ever did. But you look at gold's appreciation versus platinum's, and it's hard for me to get overly excited by platinum, but I think everyone should own a little bit. And trading a few ounces of gold for it's not the worst idea. I think there's better value trading gold to silver, but it's along those same lines, and the logic behind it is very sound.
I'd like to share a window with our specials because we're getting late in the hour and some people do have to take off. So let's give you a
By the way,
chance.
next week we have some what appears to be some very cool specials, some 10 ounce and some kilo Royal Mint coins that are really hard to come by. So next week's specials are very cool. Um, the reason I like this special right
If
now,
you
I
can read
mean,
it, if you can read it
yeah,
off,
these
Andy,
are
for
the
those who are
1 ounce
listening on
gold
audio only.
Philharmonics at 65 bucks over. You're getting them for pretty darn close to what a gold bar is, and gold bars are becoming so bloody hard to get. I like these a lot. It's good value um, for a 1 ounce gold coin that has no image of a
Royalty.
queen or a king or Lady Liberty or anything along those lines. So people like these a lot. Silver maple leaf coins. This is a great value, should be as good or better than almost everyone in the country. These are cool coins, of course. They're the purest silver coins in the world. You can see the 4 9s. To me, they're number two behind Silver Eagles in terms of my personal uh, desire to own silver coins. I would buy these right after I'd buy American Eagles, but you could argue they're the highest quality coins in the world. And at 349, it's good value compared to everything else.
I want to, yeah, underscore a couple things you said there. One is about the purity, also the precision of their engraving is second to none. If you look on the Canadian maple leaf where it shows the maple leaf, there's a smaller maple leaf just below it, and inside that is micro engraving that actually is like a fingerprint for each coin. They're usually years ahead of the other mints in terms of their engraving technology. And also, being North American, it's probably, as you mentioned, second in line of being the most recognized modern silver bullion coin for people living in the US because it's still North American.
Totally.
So, something to think about. How about junk silver?
And I'm going to also say that for, significant orders, we can probably even do a little better than the $1.99 over. But to me, it's for the junk silver, the pre 65, it's the best value in silver, not even close. And I've said forever, during the pandemic, the premiums on pre 65 silver were higher than everything with the exception of Silver Eagles. Now they're lower than everything, just about. Um, it's the best value in silver. It's not sexy. I mean, you look at the pile of coins right there, dirty old coins that minimum of, 60 plus years old. It's not sexy, but value wise, there's nothing better.
And as you pointed out before, and I have to mention this as a preparedness channel, that you get, as Bill Holter reminds us, 14 transactions to the ounce with dimes,
Yep,
which rather than taking your big, huge, shiny silver eagle to the farmer's market to get eggs and bread and something and needing to ask for change and that kind of stuff, you reduce a lot of that friction if you show up with something that's just the right size. It's kind of like, I mean, like today it's like carrying a $25 bill, and that's your smallest thing in your wallet. So you'd be better off with a dime than a full ounce if you're in a bartering situation.
Well, let's hope it doesn't come to that, but just, let's say silver does go higher than anyone thinks possible. The utility that it gives you is paramount.
And for people wanting to do the gold for silver swap to play the gold silver ratio, that way this is how you get the most ounces of silver from the US Mint for your existing gold. No, hands
That is
down, no
true.
question. Okay, 1/10 ounce platinum Britannia.
Yep. The 1/10 ounce platinum Britannia, those people that want platinum, well, here's a way to get it with great utility. And yeah, you're gonna save money buying 1 ounce coins, but having the fractional, I think, is very neat. Um, I like them a lot. I do. And I guess there's a niche, if you will, a niche to buy the fractional platinum coins. Again, the best value is 1 ounce, but look, not everyone wants to spend all that money, and maybe some people like the fractional utility of it. I personally do as well. I like them an awful lot. I think they're great.
We have a question here from D. James who says, how can silver not eventually run high when it's used far more than gold and most of it can't be recovered?
Well, it will. And the only way you can manipulate a market over an extended period of time is to push it in the direction it's going. Um, and now the whole world is keen on accumulating silver and other strategic commodities, so it will. It's just been that for our whole lifetime, no one wanted to buy anything in this country, or no one wanted to buy commodities, and everything in this country was, they wanted to buy securities, they wanted to buy real estate, they wanted to buy treasuries, they didn't want to buy gold and silver. And well, that's changing. And as that changes, the ability to suppress it, especially naked suppress it, as you can see by the strain on the LBMA, is becoming extraordinary. So it will. And it's like a beach ball you try to hold underwater and push it down further and further. The pressure goes higher and higher and stronger to snap your face off as it comes up. So it will. I think it will extraordinarily accentuate itself. But, you know, it gets tiring saying that all the time and it doesn't happen. It doesn't mean I don't believe it. It just means that the people who've been playing this game have a lot more ammunition and a lot more power and political clout maybe than we all gave them credit for. But the rest of the world has found a way to exploit that by standing for delivery, and that's why it's changing. So before it's all said and done, if you have strong enough fingertips and you can hang on, you will see silver, I think, outperform even your own expectations. I do believe that. It's been a long game. It's been frustrating, but the logic behind it, the mathematics behind it, the even the technicals behind it would say that's exactly what is coming.
Andy, we want to take a moment to thank everyone who's been participating in the live chat. Guys, you make this happen. We did end up with over 2,300 at a time. We now still have over 2,000 viewers right now in the live chat. And you guys are the ones that make this happen. You make this possible. And if you want to make sure you don't miss a single episode with Andy or any of our other guests, and Andy's schedule sometimes changes, so you don't want to miss that. Make sure you're on our free mailing list. It's completely free, completely private. Just go to libertyandfinance.com. That's our website, libertyandfinance.com. Put in your email address, click submit, make sure you confirm. On the confirming email, you'll get one email in your inbox per day. We will not share your email address with anyone. It's completely private and free, and you'll get every episode with Andy. You'll know what all of our other guests are on, and you know what the weekly specials are, so you won't miss anything. So, Andy, just on behalf of everybody on the list and everybody who's going to watch this and myself, thank you for being here. You always make time for us.
You're
We
my
appreciate
favorite,
it more.
Dunnigan. I love you, and I thank you for having me. And we'll see you next week, God willing. And to everyone else, have a great rest of your evening. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for having me.
God bless each and every one of you out there and have a happy Easter week. And thank you all for being here.
So long.
Okay.